The honourable member from Foothills.
The Prime Minister's Christmas gift to 97% of Canadians. Merry Christmas. You're going to have a carbon tax in your home heating this winter. The Prime Minister literally gave Canadians a lump of coal by voting against a common-sense Conservative motion to take the tax off and keep the heat on. Now, we thought the Liberal NDP's carbon tax coalition was bad, but there's a new addition to the carbon tax naughty list. The Bloc joined the Liberals and voted to keep the carbon tax on home heating this winter. Which gift did the Prime Minister leave under the separatist tree to protect his government for 2 more years?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said a number of times, it is important to actually have a plan to address critical affordability issues in a long-term way, but also to continue to address the climate crisis. Those are the measures that we have put into place. I have to say again that I do find it the height of hypocrisy that my honourable colleague across the way, who ran on a platform that included putting a price on pollution, gets up in the House today and actually says what he's saying. It is the height of hypocrisy.
The honourable member from Foothills.
The Prime Minister joined the separatists to divide Canadians. Those Canadians will have to pay a carbon tax on their home heating over the winter, and 3% of Canadians who will get a pause on the pain. It's clear that the Liberals and the Bloc, their Christmas gift to Canadians is to punish families for heating their homes this winter. Right. They voted against a common-sense Conservative motion to take the tax off for every single Canadian. Again, what Christmas wish did the Prime Minister grant the separatists for the Liberals to avoid an election on the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I think every party in this House actually is concerned about affordability issues, but the only party in this House that does not care about the climate crisis is the Conservative Party of Canada. The only party that actually has no plan to address it and doesn't even believe that climate change is real. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Leader of the Opposition essentially said he would walk away from Canada's climate targets, walk away from every member of the international community. He would walk away from our children's future, and he would walk away from a clean economy that will actually create jobs and economic opportunity across the country. Shame on him.
The honourable member from South Shore, St. Margaret's.
After 8 years, the revolting Atlantic Caucus and the panicking, plummeting Prime Minister now have 2 coalitions with which to flip Canadians the bird. The costly coalition with the NDP to drive the cost of everything up. Unfortunately, Canadians know too much about that. The other, according to the Quebec media, is with the separatist Bloc, who committed to keep the Liberals in power for another 2 years. The costly coalition Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister release his full carbon tax coalition agreement with the separatist Bloc?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think my honourable friend across the way used the word revolting. You know what is revolting? Are the tactics, the circus act that is going on in the Natural Resources Committee, blocking the passage of Bill C-49. It is endangering the health and safety of the translators in that committee. It is an enormous waste of taxpayers' money. It is opposing the Premier of Nova Scotia, the Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia, and the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. It will create jobs and economic opportunity for the future in a manner that is consistent with fighting the climate crisis. Shame on him.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois separatists joined the Liberals yesterday in voting against our motion to remove the carbon tax for home heating for all Canadians. Yet, the Premier of Quebec signed a declaration with all other provinces to support our initiative. So the Bloc Québécois is working against the Premier of Quebec and for the Prime Minister of Canada. Who would have thought? What concessions did the Bloc Québécois get to keep this incompetent and costly Prime Minister in power? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know about you, but as for me, I'm a big fan of Infoman. And last week, Infoman did a segment on the Conservative Party of Canada's half-truths. They mentioned half-truths twice in their show. So Infoman determined that the Conservatives' claims are false. The Conservatives claim that the carbon tax has a 16% impact on carbon tax, but that is in fact false. It's 0.15%. Factually speaking. So that's a really great episode of Infoman with conservative untruths, and I recommend it to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, this is quite funny. Infoman is now leading the government's future. After 8 years of this Liberal government, though, Mr. Speaker, a new coalition was formed yesterday, a Bloc Liberal coalition. We were already tired of the Bloc, of the Liberal NDP coalition. Now there is another coalition, a separatist, independentist, federalist coalition, the Bloc Liberal coalition. The Bloc is supporting the Liberal Party so that they can stay in power for another 2 years. Now this government is known for its extravagant spending, and we want to know what the Bloc Québécois got in exchange for making this deal with the Liberal Party. The Honourable Environment Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, it's true that there is a coalition in this House. The Liberal Party of Canada, the Bloc Québécois, the Green Party, and the New Democratic Party are all in this House, and all these parties believe that climate change is an existential threat. There's one party in this House that doesn't believe that, and that's the Conservative Party. So there are 4 parties in this House which believe that we need to take action against climate change, that we need to put a price on pollution, that we need to promote green energy, clean energy, and electrification of transports, and there's only one party in this House that doesn't believe in that, and that is the Conservative Party of Canada. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, it costs a lot to vote Bloc, and they demonstrated that once again yesterday. Yesterday, the new Bloc Liberal Costly Coalition voted against our common sense motion, which would have allowed Canadians across the country to keep warm in winter. We cannot say it often enough. They voted together to drastically increase the carbon tax at the expense of Canadians. They are not worth the cost. It's costly to vote for the Bloc, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what concessions did the Bloc Québécois obtain in exchange for keeping this incompetent Prime Minister in power? The Honourable Minister. What is he talking about? Where was our colleague this summer when rivers were overflowing, when there were wildfires? Where was he this summer when people were displaced all over the place, Mr. Speaker? The Conservatives and their backward policies, they refuse to believe in climate change. They're climate change deniers. They want to move Canada backwards all the way back to the Stone Age.
Before we listen to the next question from the member for Lévis-Lotbinière, I would like to remind the member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier that his voice is rather loud, and it's important to keep his voice under control before he rises to speak in the House of Commons and is recognized. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 8 years of this incompetent Prime Minister, he's found a new partner. Yesterday, the new costly Bloc Liberal coalition voted to maintain the carbon tax on home heating for all Canadians. It's truly shameful. Mr. Speaker, for a second time, what concession did the Bloc Québécois obtain to keep this incompetent Prime Minister in power? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we won't take any lessons from people who thinks that humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time and that TV shows like the Flintstones are documentaries. We are going to fight climate change, and the Conservatives want to make us take a step back on the environment, on firearms, and bring us back to the Stone Age. The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, we saw the true colours of the Bloc. Once again, they let Quebecers down by voting with the Liberals. And when we say it costs a lot to vote Bloc, we saw the proof once again yesterday, voting against the application of the tax break to all forms of residential heating in Canada for all Canadians. Well, the Bloc voted against it. Incredible. This costly new Bloc Liberal coalition is doing nothing good for Quebec. What concessions did the Prime Minister make to the Bloc to hold on to power for another 2 years? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Last week, the Honourable colleague asked what my former Greenpeace colleagues thought of my work, and then he thought what Equiterre thought about it. And here's what they said. In terms of our plan, it's the first time that we have such a detailed strategy to attain our targets that we set. David Suzuki said, this plan has the best chance of success of any other previous Canadian plan. Greenpeace, for the first time, a climate plan in Canada sees the oil and gas sector significantly reducing its emissions. What is the Conservatives' plan? I don't see it.